Hey, before we get into today's episode, quick reminder that I get to walk alongside you in a few different ways, and I want you to know all of them exist to serve you. If you've ever wondered where in the world you're actually meant to thrive, I do astrocartography reports, my most loved offering. If you're ready for consistent, deep transformation, we can work together in coaching. Need clarity on something right now? Book an intuitive reading. And if you just want ongoing soul-led connection and support, come join us in community inside the Soul Shine Collective. Whatever season you're in, there's a place for you. Links are in the show notes. Okay, let's get into today's episode.
And then suddenly I became aware that the room was full of spirits, and they were like sort of white shapes, but with human faces. And they were like flowing across the room. And I was writing about it, and I described it as a murmuring of souls. You know, you have the sparrows that fly in unison, and they were doing that.
Welcome back to Aligned and Abundant. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, Natasha Joy Price. She is an energy therapist, Reiki practitioner, author, podcaster, and creator of Soul Continuum Healing. Natasha has spent more than 2 decades exploring the connection between energy, healing, and human potential. What makes her perspective especially unique is that she has successfully bridged both the corporate and spiritual worlds, working as a solicitor while also helping people understand the profound role energy plays in their well-being and personal growth. She is the host of the Balm to the Soul podcast, author of Freedom of the Soul and the Red Magus, and is passionate about helping people reconnect with themselves through energy awareness, healing, intuition, and soul-level understanding. Today, we're exploring what it really means to care for your energy, how our past experiences may shape our present lives, and why understanding ourselves on a deeper level can transform the way we live, heal, and grow. Welcome, Natasha. I'm so happy to connect with you and have this conversation today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me on. It's really nice to meet you.
And I love that we're able to connect across continents. Tell my listeners where you are coming in from.
I am in the UK. I'm in the county of Suffolk, which is very rural, open farmland, basically. But
I
yeah,
love
lovely
that.
part of the country.
That's beautiful. It's like dreams for me. I would love to eventually have more property to just be outside in nature.
Oh, absolutely. And one of my bucket list is to buy some land and rewild it.
Oh,
Just grow Suffolk trees and Suffolk weeds, because then they encourage the butterflies to come back, something like that.
that's so beautiful. I recently was looking up plants that I would like to put in my backyard, and the butterfly, I think it's a milkweed, keeps coming up. And now I keep seeing it everywhere. So, of course, what we're attracting is coming into our vision.
That's it. That's it.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and who you are and how you got interested in energy.
So I sort of found energy healing in a strange way, maybe 23 years ago now. I was a normal mum, and I just had my third child, and it was the hottest week of the year, and I had really bad swollen ankles. And somebody said to me, "Why don't you go and have a Reiki?" And up to that point, I had never heard the word. I was married with 3 children, had a very corporate part-time job, juggled family, lived near my parents. It was a very, very normal life, really. But I wasn't particularly spiritual or hadn't really discovered energy healing at that time. But I went for a Reiki, and I now term it a paranormal experience. At the time, I didn't, and I never told anybody about it either. The walls of my little life fell down, if you like, and I suddenly realized, oh my goodness, how have I got to this age and not known that this existed? What is it? Where does it come from? How can I utilize it? That sort of thing. I just became incredibly curious. And so I I had to learn more about it. So I started training with the same lady that I'd had the Reiki with, and my mum and I trained together up to master level. And then just really over the years, I have just trained in so many different modalities, and I even did a master's in parapsychology alongside my work, a corporate job, and my kids, not with a view to having a business or anything, view to having anything really. It was just that I was fascinated. And having that experience sort of sparked a passion in me somehow. And I just had to find out more. And so that's been my journey, really.
Would you be open to sharing? Because you piqued my interest when you said a paranormal experience. Would you be open to
Yeah.
sharing like what your experience
Yeah.
was?
Absolutely. I have shared it a few times with people now. I feel I've just retired from my corporate job
Yes.
after 29 years, about 5 weeks
Congratulations.
ago. Thank you. And my three children are grown now. And I think I didn't share it because I didn't quite feel safe about people's judgment,
Mhm.
perhaps, or criticism. So I'm happy to share it now. So I went along to this Reiki treatment. I actually took my son in the carry cot, and the lady had a little dog with her. And I don't think I relaxed at all because I was just, where is she? What's she doing? And also, that was the nature of my life at that time, busy, busy, busy. And then suddenly I became aware that the room was full of spirits. And they were like sort of white shapes, but with human faces. And they were like flowing across the room. And I was writing about it and I described it as a murmuring of souls. You know, you have the sparrows that fly in unison, and they were doing that. And even to the point that one came really close to look at me, and I actually physically ducked. And the lady was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, no, I'm fine, thank you." um, but I wasn't frightened, and the faces were kind, and the emotion, the feeling in the room was not one of being scared or anything like that. It was just they were curious about me, and I was curious about them. And so that really just started the whole thing.
That is so beautiful. And as I'm listening to you, I'm like, this is why it is so beautiful to do Reiki and give Reiki to other people because of those experiences that you wouldn't have had otherwise. When
No.
I got my first Reiki attunement, I remember, and it was so vivid. Like, it's almost like it felt so real. Like, I went to the pyramids in Egypt in that first Reiki attunement. And like,
Wow.
it felt like I was really there. It was so
Yeah.
wild. Like, I felt like I had traveled, and it was an experience that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
love
It
that this
was
happened to
yeah.
you, right? Here you are looking for help, looking for relief. And then this powerful experience happens and it opens this doorway for you.
And I've never seen it like that again. Never.
Yeah.
I've had other, experiences, but not like that. And I almost feel like it was an invitation. They sort of opened the door for a few minutes and I could see what was on the other side, and then they shut it again. But it was enough for me to just go off and, be fascinated.
I also love that you took your mom on this journey with you, that you did it together. That's really
Yes.
cool.
Yes, bless her. Yeah, we really enjoyed doing it together, actually. It was something we could do together. We were both interested. I think
Hmm.
my mother, although she wasn't into energy healing, she was way before her time. She was like a midwife and she was very into nutrition. And she used to say, when I was a child, you are what you eat, which is, now people understand that more, but then it was less so. So, yeah, she was very ahead of her time.
That's beautiful. So tell me a little bit about how you used this gift of Reiki, of being able to give Reiki. How did you utilize that then moving forward in your life?
Well, when I was training, I didn't always understand what was happening, obviously. But what I did understand was that I felt like, even with three small kids, I felt like my batteries had been recharged every time I went to have a Reiki. So I knew that something was happening. I knew that there was something to this. maybe I didn't quite understand it all, but I knew. And that sort of propelled me forward. And I was very conscious that working in a corporate situation, it's tough. It's tough. And there's a lot of burnout. And I began to think, well, I tried to merge the two often. It wasn't always successful, but I began to offer Reiki sessions to people that I worked with and started talking about it in a small way because I realized that when you use energy healing, the anxiety and the fear that you can have working in a very high intensity fades, it lessens. And I could feel that in myself. So I knew there was a reason for me doing this. So I just plowed on, to be fair, and learned all sorts of other modalities and just tried to learn as much as possible.
Yeah, it's like once that door gets opened, you kind of just want to keep learning all of
Yeah.
the different tools, the different modalities. And I also, one thing that I've noticed is when you are giving Reiki, it also has like an effect on you. Like you feel almost at peace
Mm,
and just so connected. And
yeah.
that in itself is also very rewarding
Yeah.
to know that
And
you're helping heal someone else or, giving them the energy that they need to, like you said, when people are just go, 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 and the burnout is a real thing
mm,
and the constant
mm,
pushing through, we need to recharge our batteries. And a Reiki
yeah.
session is kind of like that in a generic way, in
Yeah.
an easy way to explain it.
Yeah, and it puts your vagus nerve back to rest and digest, doesn't it? Very much so. And people always say, "Oh, I slept so well afterwards," which just shows that there's a level of relaxation that goes on. Definitely.
Exactly, exactly. That's beautiful. So tell me a little bit about soul continuum healing.
Yeah, so I followed this path following Reiki. I trained in a few things and I found past life regression. Again, in a very bizarre way, but we we found past life regression. And I ended up doing a 2-year diploma with the Regression Academy in England. Again, if you could say that that experience in Reiki changed my life, the experience in the academy changed it again. And I just got really fascinated by all of that sort of area. But at the end of it, I thought, well, what now? What now? It didn't feel quite finished. And then I found a lady who did future life progression. So I thought, oh, okay, let's have a look at that. And then I also did lives between lives as well, trained in to give people sessions in that. And I began to realize that actually our soul's passage across time and space is not linear. We as humans make it linear to help us understand it. But I see it like almost like a cobweb hung across the universe. And using the techniques, the trance hypnotic techniques in past life regression, or future life progression, or whatever you want to term it, you can go to any point on that pathway, if you like, and you can begin to see threads and commonalities. Perhaps you can see certain lessons that are being repeated over and over again, or perhaps you can visit a few times and see the same person that you're with. And so, what's that about? Is that sort of a karmic relationship? What's happening there? So you begin to see the whole sort of soul continuum, the whole soul life, and you can start having a look at that and really start to understand what you're doing here. What are we doing here? What is the whole purpose of this? So, yeah.
That's so fascinating. I love
Mm,
that you described it that way, like a cobweb, because it has so many points that go out and extend,
mm,
but yet they're all in a circle and they all connect.
yeah,
That's a really beautiful visual.
exactly. Yeah. And I just feel we can go to any point on that. And then, some people, it's not something that I've delved into hugely, but some people do intergalactic regression with the idea that Earth is not the only planet that we learn lessons on. So then you're sort of almost making that cobweb sort of into a cone, if you like. It goes back to another dimension almost. So it's absolutely fascinating because no session is the same
Right.
at
So
all.
in
Yeah.
your studies, have you done past life or future life regressions for yourself, or is
Oh,
it mostly
yes.
for your clients?
No, no. In the training, we have to do a lot. We have to be the client for our, fellow students and vice versa. So I have done a huge amount of past lives and experienced that and future life progressions and between lives because that's part of the training. So,
So I've never heard of the between lives one. Can you dive into that a little bit more deeper?
yeah, so it was made famous by a gentleman called Michael Newton, who was a psychiatrist. He did lots of regressions, and his belief was that we plan our lives. So we plan, and that's hard for people to hear if they're having a hard time, but we are in control of the lessons that we're learning. So maybe we want to learn about a certain emotion, so we will plan situations in order to learn about that emotion. So using regression, we go back to that planning session. So you can see what you are supposed to be doing. What were the plans, sort of thing, And also for myself, I know that age 50, I had planned to not be here anymore. But because I had done so much work on myself and worked so hard on myself and gained so much knowledge, I didn't take that route at all. And so, although I had the thoughts, they were very weak. It's quite hard to explain. I was aware of them, but I was thinking, what is this? Rather than being sort of delving into it. So that had been my plan. And then at that plan, we had to sort of rewrite something. They had to sort of say, well, okay, we'll just hold you here for a bit and then we'll try and work out where you're going, basically.
Wow. I
Yeah.
kind of have chills there. And do you have a cat in the background or anything?
A cat? No.
I saw a shadow
No,
walk
I
in
haven't
the
got a cat.
background.
I've got dogs, but they're not in the
Okay.
room.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to show you the playback to this.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, what time are we at? Okay.
I have
Yeah.
had cats in the past.
Okay. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So
So many things to unpack right there. First of all, may I ask how old you are now?
I'm 60.
Okay, so 10 years after
Hmm.
your possible exit.
Yeah.
Do you believe that we have three exit points? Have you ever heard that? That you kind of build in exit points that you could choose to exit the life?
I hadn't heard that actually,
Okay.
but it wouldn't surprise me.
Mhm.
I don't know whether that's correct or not, but I know from my own experience, and I began to realize that I had given myself an exit point at that time. But it was just that my life had gone in such a different direction. And perhaps if I'd never had that experience with Reiki, and perhaps if I'd never discovered any of this, I might have been in quite a dark place.
Right.
You just don't know. But I hadn't heard that before, no. But I can
Yeah.
well believe it.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I've heard along the way.
Mm,
I've also heard the number seven, but the one that I've heard the most common is three.
mm,
So I'm curious, and it all makes sense to me. So in the in between lives is when we're planning our next lives, when we're kind of working
yeah.
out our soul contract and our lessons and
Hmm.
everything that we want to experience. At the time that you were 50 and you kind of had these feelings, is that when you decided to go and do like a past life or in between life regression to kind of see what was going on or
I had already done it.
oh,
I'd already done the training. And I think that's why I knew, I was able to understand what was happening.
okay.
But during the training, what what you see is that we pick our bodies, we pick the country we're going to, we pick the family,
Hmm.
we pick the dynamics,
Hmm.
all of that. I find it's difficult to explain to some people, and I do understand that some people who struggle and have very traumatic experiences find that very hard to say, well, that was my choice. And I get that. That's a toughie. But that is what that modality is about, whether you take it or not.
Mm. Yeah, I
Mm,
can totally relate to that
yeah.
because just to be transparent, my husband lost his mother to a battle to breast cancer. And
Mm,
when I've had that conversation of, I guess, being blunt and saying, well, this is what she chose, like, this is what she wrote into her soul contract, like, it is very hard for my husband to
mm,
understand that,
mm.
you
Yeah.
know. It doesn't make it any less painful or have
No.
any less effect, but that's just how I believe. Like, we are here to
Yeah.
experience, and we it can't all be happy and joyful. Like, there has
No.
to be the deeper experience for our soul to evolve and to grow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is all very powerful and, like, confirming also for me and my interest
Yes.
in this type of topic.
And it's very complex as well because your mother-in-law's passing affected your husband in a certain way, well, affected you. So whatever, if we're talking about we plan our lives, it's hard because obviously there's a real ripple effect on so many other people. So, and they're doing their planning. So when you start to think about it, it's really hard, I think, for our human minds to
Oh yeah.
really comprehend what's going on.
Yes, and I think that's why it's about connecting back to your inner knowing, because we forget all of these things, because realistically, if we came to this world knowing all of that, like, we wouldn't show up the
Yeah.
same way,
No, no.
you
No, not
know?
at all. I mean, if I had known that, I would have gone off and started learning things and maybe in a very different way. But I feel like the human experience, it's almost like we have to learn to follow our intuition. We sort of have to learn to follow the breadcrumbs, if you like, and go with it, not always understanding why am I doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yep.
And I think that's part and parcel of our remembering in a way.
Yes. 100%. And
Yeah.
trusting to follow those breadcrumbs and knowing that you might
Yeah.
not understand the bigger picture until later on down the road. We get so caught
Yeah.
up in, like, why is this happening to me? Or why am I experiencing the same lesson again? We have to span out in order to see the bigger picture. And sometimes that just takes time or other experiences or other connections. And
Mm.
in the long run, hopefully we'll get it. If not, we're just going to keep repeating the same issue
And
until.
that's what soul continuum work is about. Literally that, just panning out and having a look at, what keeps repeating, you know, that that and trying to get that more overview of
Mhm.
what we're doing rather than being in the sort of nitty-gritty details.
Yeah. So do you offer these regressions?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. When I trained, we didn't have training to do it by Zoom.
Mm.
But the new sort of students coming out of the academy, they do learn by Zoom. I think post-COVID,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
become the norm, hasn't it? So
Yeah.
so yeah, I do regressions. Yeah.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. We're definitely going to put your information to connect to you in the show notes.
Lovely.
So if you're listening and you're interested in a past life or future life or in between life regression, I would highly recommend that you reach out to Natasha. Tell me a little bit about how that interest led into you writing a book.
Yes. So the book that I wrote last year is called The Red Mages is the masculine, but the plural is magi.
Mm.
And they were like priestesses or sorcerers, or they would birth the children in the tribe. They would do the medicine and the energy work, and they would see people off as they passed, if you like. They were that sort of character. And I wanted to write a book about past life regression and just let my imagination run wild a bit. So the story came together, and it's basically the main character has just had a baby and she feels a bit lost. She goes for a past life regression and she sees a couple of past lives. So she sees one where she realizes that the character who killed her in a past life, it's in fact her present day husband. So she's beginning to think that perhaps, things are repeating themselves. And so it's all a bit of a thriller, a drama. And then she also meets this character, the Red Magus, who is female. And there's a reason why I put her as masculine in the title. But she then begins to think that this character is sending her a warning across time and space, basically. So it's all that, all the threads. And I had great fun writing it, and I had great fun weaving in all sorts of things like crystals and essential oils, and her mother-in-law's neighbor reads the tea leaves, and all sorts of things that I have had fun with, over the years, sort of thing.
Two things. One, I want to get the book because it sounds like such a read that would be right up my alley. And two, I love that you keep saying that you had fun with it.
Yeah,
You
I
know what I
did.
mean? Like that is
Yes.
like what I'm all about right now is having fun with life and then
Yes.
also like creating and getting paid to be you, getting paid to have fun. That's so
Yeah.
it's just so
And I
inspiring.
weaved in some experiences that I've had, but I wanted to call it a novel. I wanted it to be fiction
Mhm.
because I think, I love teaching by way of storytelling,
Oh
really,
yeah.
which is what the ancients did. So maybe somebody who's a complete skeptic will pick the book up and see it as fiction, and that's fine as long as they enjoy it. Other people might take it and sort of understand it at
Mhm.
different levels. But the greatest reviews I've had and comments I've had are from complete skeptics who've said, I would never have picked up a book on that topic, but actually I really enjoyed it. And
Wow.
that to me is like, yeah, good, good. Bring that into their awareness.
Right.
That's, yeah,
Right, because you're not aware of what you're not aware of, you know.
exactly, exactly.
And who
So
knows,
just
it could open a doorway for them like Reiki had opened for you.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's like a gift that you've put out into the world to bring more people to awareness of all of these different layers to life
yeah,
and
yeah,
lives. You know what I mean? Like past lives, future lives, and that web that we talked
yes.
about.
Yeah. And to energy healing in itself, I think
Right.
it's so important that people become aware that there's another aspect of us. And if we leave it out, if we ignore it, then we're missing a piece of the jigsaw.
Totally.
It doesn't make sense to me at all. So if
100%.
you can get people to be aware of that and just to start thinking about it is great.
Mm-hmm. How do you think going into a past life helps someone on their healing journey?
So, what I find is if we've had a traumatic past life or when we've passed over in a past life, the thoughts and emotions that we've had at that point in time, we can still be holding on to. But in this current lifetime, we might have no context for them. We don't even be consciously aware of them, but they are in our energy. So they are affecting the ways that we move forward, the way that we make decisions, etc. I've also found, and I think it's becoming more, understood that physical symptoms often have emotions behind them. And our body is talking to us,
Mhm.
and our body is saying to us, you need to release that. That has now filtered into me, and I'm struggling here, whatever that might be. So I do the past life regression therapy. So, what we are doing is we are going back and we're looking at those negative emotions and we're releasing them and we're getting rid of them so that you no longer have to hold on to them. And actually, when people come back into their current lives, they often feel a shift. I've had people whose physical symptoms have changed and improved because they're no longer holding on to those emotions. Not that I would ever guarantee anything, but the reactions that people have are on so many different levels. But one of them is physical, but they might just feel happier.
Yeah,
I've had that comment. I just feel happier. Well, that's
right.
lovely.
Right. They may
That's
not be able to
brilliant.
pinpoint it, right?
Yeah.
But they
Yeah.
notice a significant change or a significant difference where they can
Yeah.
say that had an effect on me.
Yeah. Or a fear and anxiety has lessened or even
Mhm.
disappeared, or a phobia, they no longer have it. They don't have that emotional charge
Mm,
to that thing anymore.
right.
So it's really effective in that way.
Yeah, that's really interesting that to think that we can carry emotions from a past life into this life, because one would think that we would come into this life possibly with like a clean slate.
Mm,
Do
no.
you think that sometimes, and this is just your own opinion, of course, but do you think that, like, do we take a time out or do we go from one life to the next? And I know the whole concept of time is not linear, except for our human brains to figure that
Yeah,
out. You know what I mean? Like, in a way that we can, like,
yeah.
handle understanding that. But I'm kind of curious because when you say that to me, I wonder, it's like, why did we not take the time to energetically clear those past emotions, or is it meant to be cleared in the next life?
Well, it's part of the lesson.
Okay.
So if we haven't cleared it,
Mm,
we have got to. And also, when we pass over, we are still working on it on the other side. So I
okay.
have had that experience
Oh.
in that, if somebody is an addict, there'll be an addict on the other side. So unless they put the work in, it
Oh,
doesn't
wow.
just disappear.
Oh,
And also, you have to there are a few things that just make our little human minds explode, but
okay.
you
Tell
have to
me.
take into a few things. So when we when we incarnate, we don't always bring all our soul energy with us. So we might leave, and sometimes we don't bring enough to achieve what we want to achieve. So it's a balancing act, and sometimes we miscalculate. But a percentage of our soul energy is in wherever you want to call it, the spirit world, doing what it needs to do or doing something else. So, you know, I'm so fascinated in energy healing in this lifetime. Maybe my percentage is doing research in the spirit world and learning more up there. So there's that aspect. And then also there's different timelines. So there are different dimensions where we're living out lives. So you can find out that, say, you could have several past lives during a particular world war or something, and you think, well, hold on, how does that work? I've seen a life when I was in this battle, and now I'm in. How does that work? And it's to do with timelines and different. So we can be living out several lives at once. So when you
Okay. Yeah.
start
My
when you
mind is
start
exploding.
yeah. So it's not always too easy to understand. And sometimes, we can go into past lives and we can change them. And when I first heard that concept, I was like, well, I don't get that. That's like I don't understand what that's happening. But there's an aspect of it that's quite fluid.
Uh-huh.
So we can go into a past life and we can rewrite it and release emotions that way and affect what we're doing here. So I'll give you an example. I saw a life where I was a pioneer
Mhm.
and I came to quite a grisly end, and I was very lonely in that lifetime. And when I passed over, I was on my own. Nobody came to my funeral or anything.
Hmm.
I then read Denise Lynn, who
Mhm.
she talks about changing past lives. And I was going on a course, so I wasn't at home. I didn't have to put a wash on or do anything like that. So I woke up really early in this friend's house and I thought, right, I'm going to try this. So I lay and I thought about that past life and I rewrote it in my head. So I rewrote that I made friends with these people and we both participated in each other's lives, and when I died they all came to the funeral and they were there for me, etc. And then I fell asleep and I woke up kicking the bed, which I've never done in my life before, I can assure you. But it was almost like just pure anger was just flowing out of me. And I thought, okay, I get that now. So you can shift it, you can rewrite it. And when you do that, you release. Obviously, I was fuming from that. I held so much anger from that lifetime, and I was able to release it in that way. So I've come to sort of realize that perhaps it is quite fluid and we can go and shift things and shift emotions. But if I hadn't done that, I could be a very different person in this lifetime. I could be really angry and be thinking, why do I keep losing my temper? Why am I so angry?
Right.
And it's because of a different lifetime where you've been
Right.
treated badly.
Right. I have heard that if you heal something going on in this lifetime, it can heal a past life and it can heal the lineage, your ancestral lineage.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. I do. I find that so fascinating, to be honest. And I do believe in like divine timing. So it's like in my mind, I'm sitting here working like, okay, why are we having this conversation right now? So I'm
Mm.
wondering how I'm going to play with that myself. So thank you for that. When you were visualizing it, was it almost like, you know, how when you go to sleep and you kind of like, or really any time, but I feel like going to sleep is like an easier time because your brain starts to like calm down and you're letting go
Yeah.
of some of all the to dos and all of the hustle and bustle of the day. So when you were having that visualization, if you will, do you feel like that's how you would describe it? Like you just went into your mind's eye and you just visualized that life and then you changed it in your mind's eye and you felt the emotions of it. Is that what the experience was for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm very good at visualizing, and I realize that I do what is now termed mindful visualization,
Mm,
completely separate from the past life regression. But
right.
I realized that that was something that my mind just went to in a way. And it's like at the time when I did it, I was a young mum. I couldn't really get out and do courses and things like that. So I made this sort of portal in my garden, but it was completely different. It had an open space up to the universe and all angels in it, and it had a
Mm,
crystal cave, and it had all these different elements, but it was my mental room, if you like, my safe room where I could go and take some deep breaths and and have a bit of peace and
yeah.
and no mind chatter for a while. So yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. But when you do it in that way, for me, it's very, very visual, but not everybody is visual. So I think it's just, practicing it, doing it.
Mhm.
And I wonder, I'm not an expert, but I wonder if you've had this current lifetime trauma, that it would also work in a way to just go back to that and rewrite it and help the emotions release.
Yeah, you would
Um,
almost think that it could.
yeah, yeah. I don't know if that's a fact. I don't know if
Right,
that's a
right,
thing either, but
right,
I do really believe that it's all very fluid and we have the ability to direct that if we want to.
right. So leaning into that thought or that way of thinking, how can we utilize this knowledge to create our future lives or even our present lives? Like,
Mm.
do you have any advice or tips on that?
Yeah, well, the way I tend to use future life progression the most is taking people forward,
Mhm.
like maybe 1, 3, 5 years,
Mm,
and getting them to look at themselves in a mirror.
mm,
And some clients will say, "Oh my goodness, my knee is terrible. I'm not standing straight." Or some people will say, "Oh my goodness, I've put on so much weight. I feel awful." Or I look great physically, but mentally I'm in a bit of a bad spot. And when they see that, they can tweak things now. They can think, okay, I'm going to have to watch my weight, or okay, I'm going to do those exercises that I should be doing now, or maybe do a bit more yoga, or whatever it is, but they can plan for the future. So that's how I find it to be, that I've found it to be so useful with clients, because it just helps them see the tangent that they're on, and that perhaps some of it is not the best tangent that they can be on, if that makes sense.
oh, yeah, that totally makes sense.
Mm,
It gives them an inside scoop to the potentiality of their future if they keep not doing this, or
yeah.
that makes perfect sense.
And then I've had experiences going into future lives. So one of them, I was in a huge dome and I was growing plants for seeds. And it was because outside the air quality was so bad and nothing would grow. So I was just in this huge dome
Hmm.
A bit like in England, we have something called the Eden Project in Cornwall, and it is just like that now. There's a huge dome with plants inside, and, yeah. So, does that make me interested? Well, I am fascinated in plants and growing things. So, yeah, that resonates with me.
Yeah, I was feeling a
Um,
strong connection to you and gardening and the earth and tending
mm,
to the earth. So, yeah, it definitely sounds like
yeah,
it's definitely part of who you are.
yes, exactly.
Mm. Oh, I'd love to understand more. Like with the going back to the cobweb thing, I
Mm.
automatically think like Spider-Man and like the Spider-Verse. Like have you heard of like that type of concept
Yes,
where we're living
yes.
multiple lives all at once?
Mm,
That is a mind trip in itself. Also with like the Mandela effect. Have you heard of the
mm.
Mandela effect?
No, just
Okay, so
explain
what
that.
it is basically, from my understanding, is some people have a certain memory of something being one way. For example, there was a book series, and I don't know if it was in the UK as well, but in the USA, we had the Berenstain Bears. Now,
Right.
some people remember Berenstain being spelled EIN, and then there's this whole other group of people that swear it was spelled AIN. So it's almost like, were we living different timelines where in one reality it was EIN and then in a different reality it was AIN? Because there are people on the internet that you can say, hey, how was it spelled? And you'll get like 50-50. It
Yeah,
becomes mind
strange.
boggling. So that's what
Yeah.
is known as the Mandela effect, where people have a different like version, a different memory of like the same thing. So I'm wondering, it just got me thinking, like
Yeah.
I wonder where the connection is to that.
I remember reading about Penny Kelly. She's an American writer, and she talks about that every thought we have, we start a new timeline, if
Oh,
you
wow.
like. But if we don't put in our intention into it, it just goes away.
Fades away.
But it,
Okay.
yeah, but she talks about 10,000 lives. So we manifest through our thoughts different lives, and then perhaps they just fizzle out because. But she tells a story that when she became aware of another timeline, another dimension where she was living, and to the point that when she visited, her version of her had an infection, and when she got back into this lifetime, she developed the same infection. So that was the way that she knew that she'd actually been visiting that lifeline.
Wow.
To be fair, it so blew my mind that I thought, oh, I can't, I can't take that
Can't
on.
wrap that one.
No, I
Yeah.
can't wrap that one. But I suppose it's similar to when people talk about the timelines, when
Yeah.
people talk about, I have had experiences of all these past lives in the Second World War, and I just, well, how does that work? And the sort of explanation was that it was such a pivotal time in world history
Mm-hmm.
that your soul, knew that they would probably not need a lot of energy because they probably wouldn't survive. So they came down, many lives at once because they knew that that was going to
Yeah.
happen at that time.
Yes.
And
Part
they
of it.
wanted to be there and be
Yeah.
part of it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I've always felt a deep connection to that time period myself. So that is
Mm.
really interesting to think about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So she talks about sort of 10,000 lives. There's also the concept of like the honeycomb, like honeycomb, and each life is one we're living.
Mm,
So yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool.
Maybe that's something I need to look into. I wonder if you can regress into another dimension, another timeline.
Yeah. That would be really cool. If
Mm.
you find out more information, yeah, I'd love to have you back on. We can go deeper into
We
all
can
these
go,
things.
yeah.
This has been so informative, and I feel like I have lots of things to think about that I want to investigate and get deeper into, because like everything else, we're always trying to find knowledge and more information
Mm,
and make sense of this
mm.
lifetime, and connect deeper to our soul's purpose and our soul's lessons. And so it's all just so fascinating to me.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
I love
Uh,
that.
yeah, I just, I can't get enough of it really. And I'm always interested to hear people's theories and, because I don't think we know it all
Of
at
course.
all. No. So if we can get our head around some of it, then, and if people have
Also,
different theories, then fab.
yeah, I mean, well, also just the connection of like being able to have a conversation with another human being about these things that, cross our
Yes.
path or that we're interested in or that we think, just having someone who has a like-minded mindset, who's curious enough
Mm,
to ask, you know what I mean, and have
mm.
that conversation and share their opinions and their insights and their experiences without being judged,
Yeah.
that's beautiful in itself. That's the connection.
Yeah. I do think though that there are other dimensions and I do believe in angels and
Yeah, me too.
that yeah, and I've had a visitation by an angel and I know it wasn't my
Yep.
mind. It was something
Yeah,
quite
it's like there's like a
tangible.
knowing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask
So
you before we close, do you think that in your dreams you're living another life? That's something that I've personally been wondering myself lately because I wake up like it's almost so exhausted and my dreams are so vivid. I don't know, I've just been interested in like, am I really like in my body or am I like gone somewhere else? I'm just curious if you have any thoughts around that.
I have very visual dreams as well. I think it's information coming to you, but I think you could well have been going somewhere else because I do think we go off. And I met two people when I was doing my regression training, and one of them knew that they exited their bodies every night. And
Mm.
if there was a disaster somewhere in the world, they would go and help. And so I had one colleague who said, I want to remember doing that when I wake up. And I had another colleague who said, I don't want to remember doing it. I'm happy to do it, but I don't want to remember doing it. So he would come back quite tired, wake up
Mm.
in the morning. But the first colleague would often say to him, I saw you. We were doing this, or we were doing that. And she would exit and go and help. If there'd been, a mass trauma or something and there was a lot of souls passing over, she would be there to go and help them.
Oh,
And
wow.
but she remembered it and he didn't. So
Wow.
I absolutely believe that we go somewhere else sometimes, especially when
Yeah.
we wake up tired and you think,
Right.
oh, I feel like I've lived another day. Well, you probably
Right.
have somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so weird. I wake up exhausted, but like also
Yeah.
with a sense of peace. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I know, like, you know what I mean? So those two in my mind don't go together. Like, I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm tossing and turning. I think I'm legit doing stuff, which doesn't
Well,
surprise me because I'm a very much just go, 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 like
yeah.
nonstop.
But maybe ask to remember.
Yeah.
Maybe ask to remember, please,
Yes.
can I remember where I've been, what
Yeah. Now
I've
that
been
you've brought that to
doing?
my awareness, yeah, my
Mm.
consciousness, I'm gonna set that intention and get curious with that.
I think lots of people leave their bodies at lots of
Mm.
times and think nothing of it.
Mm.
Just before my father died, about 5 years ago, I had a conversation with him about all sorts of things. But he said to me, oh, yeah, I always regularly left my body. And I was like, what do you mean you left your body? Why do I not know about this? Hold on.
Right.
And he said, oh, if I had a problem to mull over, I'd just go and sit on the roof. And he would exit his body, sit on the roof, work it out, and then come back in.
Mm.
And he just didn't think it was anything worth
Abnormal.
mentioning.
Yeah.
It was
Wow.
just like, he just said, well, it's just how I always worked and how I
Mm.
always figured out my problems. And I
Oh,
thought, how many people do that in some form or other?
right. Right.
But, but maybe don't talk about it or
Mm.
so that to me adds weight to the fact that we can go into all sorts of other dimensions if we wanted to.
Wow. Yeah, that's really a powerful story itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, all fascinating stuff.
Seriously, I love this. Well, thank you so much for coming on to my
Oh, it's been
podcast
lovely.
and Also, yes, we forgot to talk about your podcast.
Yes.
Please tell me about your podcast.
My podcast is Balm to the Soul, and it's been going about 6 years now. So there's about 170 episodes. It's all around energy healing, well-being, and spirituality. I have lots of authors on as well because I always love to hear their process and whether they believe it's channeled. But all sorts of people come on, and who doesn't like having a conversation like this and just
Yeah,
having a chat? So
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
so I shall keep going, and I think we are all sort of rippling out that concept that there's what we see as reality is not all there is.
100%. I agree with you.
Mm,
And I love having
mm.
conversations like this because it increases our consciousness and our connection with one another across
Yeah,
this
yeah.
plane.
And I think it adds strength. And I actually think spirituality and that concept is growing more
Oh,
and more.
yes.
Yeah, definitely.
100% agree with that. Yeah.
You will have to come on the podcast,
Aw, thank you.
Christine.
Yes, I'd love
Yeah,
to.
we'll do a
Swap.
reciprocal episode.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for extending that
No, no
invitation.
problem. No
Well, this has
problem.
been
That'd be
such
lovely.
a lovely conversation. And I just want to thank you so much for your time, your knowledge, your experience, and your openness and willingness to share your experiences and your thoughts and what you've learned throughout your lifetime so far.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. If you were to leave our listeners with any last piece of advice or a share, what would that be?
Well, I always go on about being compassion crusaders. So just, being compassionate to not only to ourselves, but to others, and just feeling that energy and have that energy connecting us. I think that's really, I mean, if we all did that, life would be very different.
Yes, that is a beautiful, beautiful message to end with.
Mm,
So, again, thank you so much, Natasha, for joining us today. And I wish you so much love and light.
thank you.